Gacha game monetization, a sentence that elicits many different feelings, such as despair, greed, depression, and embarrassment at needing to approve a $100 transaction on your bank account so you can spend it in hopes of getting a PNG. Because here's the thing, gachas are known to be one of the most scummy ways of monetization. Now, that's not to say it can't be done in a alright enough way. There are some prime examples like Limbus and I'd say Arknights that have monetization done in a way where it doesn't feel like they want to sell your soul, but on average, this is not the case. The average is that all of these games are using any method they can to make you spend the most money possible. They hire people literally just to make sure that the price of what they're selling will get the most buyers. And the thing with all this information is, it's a case of no shit Sherlock. I mean, yeah. They're games. They're gonna optimize the money and players they can get. To not do that would be dumb, right? Which is why I don't want this to be YouTuber shouts at cloud that one of the most predatory ways to monetize a game is, unsurprisingly, predatory. And instead want to talk about this topic in a different way, namely how it was normalized, how players have in a sense cheered it on, the psychological tactics they use to sell, and how it's only going to get worse until it reaches a breaking point. And to begin with everything, well, it all starts with Genshin Impact. Okay, I know I make a lot of jokes shit-talking Genshin, but unironically, it is kind of where this all started. But not in a way that's inherently Genshin's fault, if that makes any sense. Because the thing is, Genshin's monetization strategies are cookie cutter. There isn't really anything outside of the norm. There's packs, deals, direct crystal purchases. The only thing really different is that the anniversary is disappointment adorned with sadness served up to you on a dirt plate, but aside from that, bog standard. Hell, I'd maybe even go so far as to say that its banner system is better than some games that came before it, like Fate. Though if that's the case, how was it the first domino in making monetization worse? The reason is cause it was actually a good game. I know that sounds backwards to say, but here's the thing. These monetization strategies have been put into many games before, but that was before gachas were seen as actual games. Before Genshin, they were seen as mobile slot, because a lot of them are. Like, yeah, sure, the popular ones are actually good games despite the monetization, but when you open the Play Store and are greeted with 80 different of these fuckers all as shitty as the last trying to squeeze money out of you, a lot of people know it's best not to spend because simply, the game doesn't interest them and looks like it's shit. So these packs, deals, and one-time top-ups are, for a lot of people, mentally tied to games people view as scams or slop. But then Genshin comes along, an open-world game with an interesting world, interesting characters, bright visuals, funny memes, shit tons of art, and it released during COVID. You have a success. A gacha that doesn't look like shit, something of actual quality. So now all of the same marketing and spending tactics that were done in bad mobile games can work much better now, because this is a game people want to play and want to spend in. Even though these tactics have been done, they're viewed differently now because they aren't attached to dog shit. It's kind of like, imagine these two scenarios. One, you're in a parking lot and a guy walks up to you saying he has a great deal on a Sharp watch. It's 50% off to buy it right there. The other scenario is that you're in a store that sells all kinds of watches and jewelry, and a salesman that works there walks up to you in a nice suit and gives you that same exact deal. You are much more likely to buy the second one, even though it's the same exact deal, because it's coming from a trustworthy source. Or at least a source that doesn't look like it wants to put you under ice and steal one of your kidneys. And that right there is how gacha started to be viewed differently. It used to be tied to mobile scam slop, but now it's tied to a good game that millions are playing. So it's viewed as a monetization method now. It's normalized, a different way to handle a live service game. It ain't a gacha, it's a game with a gacha as a monetization tactic. And hell, it's good, y'all. People want to play it, and because of that, to have the most fun you can in the game, they spend. Oh boy, do they spend. Genshin quickly rakes in millions, becoming 2 billion at the end of its first year. Those are numbers that most other game studios would kill for, and the result, well, they didn't actually kill for it, they just made games like it. Many different developers started looking to make gachas as big as Genshin due to its success, which leads to now, where we have many of them to the point people have termed a saying called Genshinification for games that just try to copy it. I mean shit, yo, Tower of Fantasy was that. It was Tencent's way to copy Genshin because they showed how making a good game with gacha as a monetization tactic can rake in so much money. It raised the bar. Now all of these devs want to make good games and then rake you over the coals with the gacha. So the tactic now is make Genshin, but better. Though the thing is, with saying the newer ones try to copy it, and hell, if you say the newer ones are better, it brings in fan wars, with the end game of that being fucking Sensor Tower monthly PvP. So, In case you do not know the sentence that just dredged its way out of my mouth, Sensor Tower is a site that collects data showing how much each gacha has earned in a month. Thing is, the data itself was a little spotty, so don't view these numbers as 100% how much they've earned. It's more like a ballpark. In reality, they probably make more than this. But with people knowing how much these games have made, they started viewing these Sensor Tower results that drop at the beginning of each month as PvP. Literally a my dad is stronger than your dad type of back and forth, where people will get on their knees and praise the fact their multi-billion-dollar company was able to rake in 100 million last month. Now, I'm talking some shit, but I can't lie, it's kind of funny. Seeing people go off in the replies, despairing for their game or defending it like the beaches of Normandy is pretty hilarious. It's like power scalar discussions except with much more capitalism, but this mentality of my game generated X, which means it's amazing, didn't exactly help the predatory monetization. The only thing this really did was bring in brand loyalty. Like for example, Wuthering Waves and Genshin had so much fucking pointless drama when the games launched, but it created a divide between the two communities. It made the Genshin crowd want their game to make more money than WoWa, and vice versa. Now if this brand loyalty directly increased sales, it's hard to tell. There's not really any way to easily collect data about how much this increased sales. We can only really go off of anecdotal stuff, but I'ma just say it. When people spend 5 hours on Twitter each day jerking off their favorite game, they're probably more likely to spend on it. But aside from that, what it also helped with is sunk cost fallacy. Now we've all heard about this term when it comes to rolling, right? But it also applies to how invested you are in the game. Someone who's been playing a game for a year is much more likely to spend on a gacha because to them, it's provided a lot more entertainment already. So it's worth it to spend on. Then from there, you got your bases covered. Good game, worth to spend on, and brand loyalty. After you got that shit cleared out, pick your poison. What tactics do you want to use to make people spend the most money? Because there's a gigantic list. First off, yearly anniversary refreshing the first time top up bonuses in games. It's literally a deal that makes your purchase worth double. If you don't buy the top up before the anniversary, you're just losing out on money. And if you have an account that you plan to stay with for a while, then losing out on that money is really important. Or the games can offload so many different limited time packs that you need to buy now because it has insane value. Or they can sell this really expensive thing at a huge markdown and you gotta get it now because there's no way a 70% off deal is a waste of money. Better get it before the discount is over. And as I'm sure you've already noticed, all of this plays off of FOMO, fear of missing out. And FOMO has been done in every live service game. Destiny has it with you wanting to buy shit in the Eververse store that's only up for a limited time. Final Fantasy XIV has it with wanting to renew your sub to log in to get limited time event or PvP rewards. And hell, Overwatch had it with limited time loot boxes. Yet, funnily enough, even though loot boxes are the closest out of all this to regular gacha mechanics, they were fucking clowned on. That shit was a topic of basically public humiliation for a while before Overwatch decided to remove them for Overwatch 2. Until bringing it back again, because turns out their new monetization was even worse. But so many games have used FOMO, yet they haven't reached these sales numbers of other gachas. I mean, Overwatch was huge, but Blizzard only reported it got over 1 billion in microtransactions in its first year. Genshin got 1.9 billion. Even though Genshin had significantly less players and less hype than Overwatch did, when that shit released, it fucking dominated the market. So how was Genshin able to use FOMO better? The answer is, well, how about I show an example of the answer? Love in Deep Space. In case you don't know what that is, it's a dating sim game with PGR-like combat for some reason. But unlike most gacha games, it doesn't have any waifus. It's a husbando dating sim, targeting the niche that all other major gachas left behind because in 99% of them, finding a male character is more difficult than finding a fucking shiny Rayquaza. So because a lot of major gachas don't really care about making male characters, Love in Deep Space was able to capitalize on being the only gacha of quality that has nothing but male characters. And when I say of quality, I don't mean it's a decent game. I mean it's probably one of the best games ever made for this niche. Not speaking from personal experience of having played it or anything like that, by the way. Just, that's what I've heard online. But the result of making a great game that targets a lot of players who feel left behind by everyone else on the market is millions. Love in Deep Space is always found at the top of Sensor Tower stats. The revenue this game brings in is insane. But the unfortunate part is, you know how I said the game is amazing? Yeah, the monetization is the polar opposite of that. It's a hellscape. The vibe from Infold, the company that makes the game, feels like the devs want this to be a masterpiece while the execs actively want to harvest souls from wallets. Now, to give the rundown about it, the banner system in the game is mechanically good. There's a guarantee if you roll right off, then your next will be right up. Pity 70 and there's a 75% chance it'll be one of the right up memories. And this all carries between banners. But the big worry is that the pulls you buy can only be used on the current banner. They're limited pulls. Not because the banner's limited, I mean it is, because the pulls will go away when the banner's over, which actually encourages you to gamble more because if you get what you rolled for in a small amount of pulls, you still gotta gamble or else the pulls will be worthless. And when you do that, you're actually building pity for some dupes, so why not spend a little more? Which also, any free pulls they give you are only for the current banner as well. They usually give 10 per event, but the game has some interesting banners. So there's banners that run these sun cards, and when you combine 2 sun cards of the same character, you unlock a new version of them with a combat outfit, which means you want to pull both the sun cards on that same banner to get that combo effect. And on top of this, there's bonuses for pulling dupes of both cards. Yeah, but hell, let's say you got lucky and were able to get those cards quickly. They also have pull bonuses which give you outfits and accessories based on how many times you've pulled. Yeah, basically, pull X times and you get a crate which gives you an outfit or hairstyle or whatever. So if you want that and don't care about the banner itself, you still need to pull on it. And on top of that, because dear God, of course there has to be more on top of that, cosmetics are sometimes separated between limited banners, so you need to pull even more for hairstyles and whatnot. And in case you thought that was a lot, that shit only covered the banners, there's been other ways they've really screwed over their players with monetization. Like for example, there was this thing called the Oracle of Stars. In it, you spin for a 4-star card. Now in the past, it had some free spins, and when they did it again, that shit had none. And this is on top of the fact that the banners kinda drop out of nowhere. The game doesn't have a clear content drop cycle, and until recently, there were 0 reruns on banners, which drives the FOMO even more. So it makes players feel like they need to spend to get what they want. Pull bonuses, maybe even driving people to spend a little more to reach them. And this is where the packs of the game start to shine. They give you many different packs at very arbitrary prices. Like for example, here you got, buy this pack for $1 that's 90% off. That's a really good deal and you better get it now or else the deal's going away. Meanwhile, the packs aren't actually 90% off. They're just saying they are because they can. The reason they got so many packs for you to buy is so it gets harder to track just what you spent. And on top of that, some of them are really cheap because they want you to break that free-to-play status, as people are much more likely to spend money on a game if they've already broken that status. So a small purchase of $1 is just a way to help build that habit. And then the idea comes that if you've already spent $1 to get some shit, why not spend 7 to get some more? And it then becomes harder to quit the game because you've already spent a fair bit of money on some packs, so it'd be a waste to quit. And on top of that, a dozen small purchases are much harder to keep track of and seem much cheaper than buying like a big top-up all at once. Which may be a good time to say, the bonus currency you get from top-ups in Love and Deep Space isn't premium currency, it's only regular gems. Now I do want to clarify that even though I'm using Love and Deep Space as an example, because in full I've pissed off the players so much, most of these tactics I listed are used in a lot of gachas, especially giving a fake discount price to whatever they're selling. That's done all the time. The only thing I've listed so far that I haven't seen any other game do is making the first time top-up bonus regular currency. That's pretty much it. But the reason this is able to work out so well and why FOMO works so much better in gacha games is because players have an emotional attachment to the characters. I mean, this happens in every game, period. If a game has characters, some people are gonna love them, right? But I'd say gachas as a whole have it a lot more because they all try to sell you on the characters. It's the main point of most of them. Like if you buy Elden Ring, you're probably buying it for the gameplay. Some people may have alternate wants from the game. But for a gacha, you don't actually buy the game. You play the game and then buy the characters. Now, the way some do that is make the characters really strong or just make a character that's very appealing. Characters are themselves items to buy, so they'll do whatever they can to sell you the characters. But Love and Deep Space, being a dating sim, has that emotional connection bolstered compared to other gachas, and the execs intentionally manipulate that to get as much money as they can. The banners and how they're set up is a good example, but there's also the VIP system, where if you spend more, you get rewards other players don't. It's put in a lot of games and it usually isn't viewed the best by the players, but Love and Deep Space takes it a step further, where if you reach tier 2, which takes about spending 2,100 USD to reach, you get gift boxes, like physical merch, and it even gives you handwritten letters from the love interest. You get exclusive merch for spending thousands. And the spending categories aren't a lifetime thing, you need to keep spending this annually to keep in the system and get your merch, including the letters. And all of that is a part of the emotional connection the execs are looking to capitalize on. Now, with all of this being harsh, monetization is a bit of an understatement. With this being a brief glimpse into hell, the players have wanted to change this. Because, I mean, stuff like the VIP system isn't objectively terrible. It's monetization that plays off of attachment to the characters, but it's not like it's something that makes the game worse. But how the banners are ran makes the game hell for free-to-plays. And the answer for how the players have looked to fix this is they've tried boycotting the game. A lot of times players have tried, but they never really panned out, which is kind of how most video game boycotts go. It's just a sad reality. Players are passionate about the game and want more people to play it, so they want influence monetization to ease up and make it more free-to-play friendly so more people enjoy it and find out how good the game is. But despite all the boycotts, nothing's changed. Because Love and Deep Space is at the point where they have capitalized on a niche with an objectively good game, so players can't really go to any alternative because there is none. Which means they could use FOMO and emotional attachment to the characters and all of these different spending tactics that have now become normalized to make billions. If Love and Deep Space was done in a different live service way, it'd make a lot less, but because all of these tactics are seen as normal now, there's no reason to be a regular live service game. They can make a gacha and do this to players and it's seen as normal. And I don't know if the game's monetization will ever ease up because boycotts don't work and these price points have been meticulously chosen to make the most money. It's like when people play a game and say, I'm not going to buy that $20 skin. If it was $10, then I'd get it. But the reality is, $20 is what will likely make them the most money. Hell, if a game would make the most money they can by selling that skin for a dime, you best believe they're selling it for a dime. Which is also how these gachas are run. The pricing is aggressive, but it's what works best. And on the note of emotional attachment to characters, I do want to clarify, I don't think it's a bad thing. If you got a character you love and it makes you happy, hey, you got something in your life that's a positive. Assuming you ain't hurting anyone, that's a good thing. The only unfortunate part is that these companies know about this attachment and will use it to milk the player dry. And at the extreme, sometimes that attachment towards fictional characters can actually be detrimental to real life. Not in the sense of buying merch of them or whatnot, but in the sense of spending everything for them. And I don't mean that as a way to say spending a lot, I mean needing to take out loans. Now, on the weaker side of spending, yet pretty sad, but also a little, unfortunately, fucking hilarious story of this, is the Farina one. Which, to best explain, let's just walk through the text messages. We need to talk, right now. Pick up now. You're not being fair at all. I explained my boundaries to you, but you're not respecting them. You spent $600 on our credit card on a fucking game. I explained it already to you. $600 for 2 virtual characters you don't need without asking when we are paycheck to paycheck. That card was for emergencies with the Civic, and they just respond with a fucking pic of Farina. And then they fucking say, you told me you wanted her too, but you're not happy for me, Lamau. Actually, I am done. I am a 29-year-old man. I am allowed to make purchases without needing your permission. That is an abusive dynamic, and the reply is just, yes, I said I want Farina, but I didn't say we should spend hundreds to get constellations. You are a fucking addict. You already spent all of our Christmas. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna bow out here. I already feel bad reading this. But yeah, some people just get that attached to these fictional characters to where they're willing to spend money they don't have to get them. FOMO does wonders with this too, because if you don't roll Farina when her banner's out, who knows how many months you're gonna have to wait for her to appear again. And if you really like the character, would you miss that shit? Would you miss the merch she has? It's the parasocialism mixed with the FOMO that really helps drive spending in these games. And this is on the small side of things. It was only 600. Hell, someone spent 600k yen, which is about 6,000 Canadian, as they rolled for Skathak dupes on Fate. Or hell, what about the time where someone withdrew 40 million yen to roll on a gacha? Close to about 400,000 Canadian. Not enough to buy you a home here, but, you know, it's a pretty solid amount and much better to not be used on a gacha game. Though this is the reality of what these tactics look to do, make you love a character and make you fork over everything you can for them. These companies know how attached players get to characters in games, which is why, when you play a gacha and turns out all of the characters in it are head over heels for the protagonist that's a self-insert for you, yeah, it's a method for them to get money. End of the day, it's a service. They give you characters you like, you give them money, which is fine. But when companies become overtly predatory and exploiting this, that I personally dislike. Which is where a lot of them are headed. With more and more gachas that get released, these predatory tactics will only be seen as more normal. Genshin was the first step. It popularized this as a monetization method and made a sort of box standard way for these games to be monetized. But as more games come out, monetization is only going to be furthered, and the new tactics they use to get money, predatory or not, will only become more normalized. Like, I guarantee some dev studios are looking at Love and Deep Space and writing down notes on what to copy for their game's monetization. I don't think copying the monetization one-to-one would work, because end of the day the game was able to pop off because most popular games in the market literally just ignored female players who wanted male characters in their games. But there are some tactics that will 100% be copied to new gacha releases. That's why I say these games are just going to get more and more predatory. As new ones get dropped, if they pop off, what they did to make money will then be furthered by the next big one. Honestly, that's just how gaming works. Remember when DLC in games was just horse armor? Now we got DLC for content that was obviously ripped from the base game. Remember when battle passes were not that common? Now damn near every game does them. And gachas in particular, we're going to see a lot more of. A lot of developers now are just making good games to then monetize with gacha because it can make them a lot more money than other live service methods. Like for example, we already got Destiny, but Bungie got NetEase to make Destiny Rising, which is basically just Destiny, a game we already have, but made as a gacha because it'll get money. Probably a lot more money than Marathon based on how that shit's looking. But this is sort of what a lot of companies want to do. The game plan is to make good games that are gachas. From there, if they carve out a dedicated audience, they can really squeeze out all the money they want. That's where this is all headed. Companies know how much they can make from it and all of these psychological things they can do to make players want to spend. The only thing left is to make games to attract players. Now, I'm not going to get doom posty and say all games in the future are going to be gacha with terrible monetization. Like, monetization will get worse overall, and there's going to be a lot more gachas, but here's the thing. Yes, it can make a shit ton of money, but also, these games are fucking time consuming. For most consumers, they're only playing like 2 at a time max. So if everyone goes to make them, they're going to quickly become oversaturated until another trend comes along. Especially so if every gacha out there tries their best to milk their player base. People are going to run out of disposable income and drop which games are costing them the most. And for the oversaturation aspect, think what happened with hero shooters, then what later happened with battle royales when those fell off. That's just sort of how the game industry runs. A new trend pops up, everyone tries to cash in on it. But in the near future, and I can almost guarantee this, a shit ton of high quality gacha games are going to come out. Some of them will really try to push how far they can take monetization. The goal is to make a shit ton of money before the market gets oversaturated, and then only the really good ones will still be left standing. The benefit of doing this for companies is that gacha isn't a genre but instead a monetization tactic, so you can have a fuck ton of them that feel different. It's why the big Hoyo games are all in different genres, to help attract players and not cannibalize their own audience. But the big problem is, since gachas are time consuming and like a black hole for money, oversaturation's really gonna drive them thin. That's what I think is going to happen in the future. That's the result of the evolution of gacha game monetization.
Oh, it's been my life, strife, sadness, and heart.